why does the sun damage our skin and give us skin cancer and melanoma if the sun's so good for us?
Actually, in the case of melanoma, low vitamin D is associated with melanoma. Vitamin D is primarily made in response to the sun in the skin. In addition to that, we also see that people who work outdoor occupations have lower levels of melanoma than people who work indoor occupations. We also see that people who have chronic, regular, daily sun exposure have lower levels of melanoma incidence and severity than people who avoid the sun altogether. The problem, as emphasized in the literature, is really intermittent sun exposure, which is when you never go outside and then you go on vacation to the Bahamas, you blast yourself for 3 days, you get burned to a crisp. That's a problem. But when you're getting daily sun exposure and you're chronically building that solar callus, as Jack would say, you're not only giving yourself all these other benefits, you're also protecting yourself against melanoma. And not to mention that there's no discussion of risk-benefit analysis in this sun, let's say the mainstream propaganda around the sun. Because if you were actually to look at that risk-benefit, you could say, okay, maybe if you're, not going outside very much and you're going out in the sun intermittently, you could have a slightly increased chance of basal cell or squamous cell carcinomas. I would say the data is still kind of out on the melanoma unless you're really frying yourself regularly. But also, if you're going out into the sun, you're protecting yourself against cardiovascular disease, other cancer types, breast, colon, prostate, blood cancers. You're protecting yourself against neurodegeneration, Parkinson's disease, dementia in general. And so if we look at the whole picture, it becomes really clear, okay, their number one killer is essentially cardiovascular disease and neurodegeneration is not too far behind. Right. Those two diseases are literally completely protected against in the context of chronic regular sun exposure. The rates are dramatically lower among people who engage in those practices. But nobody talks about that.